your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan, and we have a special guest with us, and we're going to talk about what she has been up to with a book that she has, which some of you may remember, the artist, James Brown. She sort of titled the book, I don't know that there's a connection at all, but the title of the book is Good God, and the website, Good God, Help Me Out. I want to welcome to our program, Cherita O'dell. Thank you so much for being with us. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this one.
Oh, yes, indeed. Absolute pleasure to be here.
And you mentioned earlier that you are coming to us all the way from Barbados down in the Caribbean, correct?
Mm-hmm. Nice, sunny, and tropical Barbados. Beautiful island in the Caribbean.
For me, because I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, it would be a nice place to visit. I'm not a fan of the heat. I like cold and snow and all that good stuff because I had 46 years of hot.
Oh, but down here, at least you get a nice cool breeze.
Well, we'll take it, especially off of the ocean. That'd be very nice.
Yes.
So you've got this incredible title, which I'm quite intrigued by, as well as this great work. And good God, it's a single girl's rocky path to finding true love. And this is, you're the author. Is this a fiction? Is this a biography or autobiography, I should say, a memoir? Where do we want to put this on the bookshelf?
I would call it a bit of autobiography and memoir because I wanted to write it in a way that people also saw themselves in the narrative. So yes, a lot of it is based on true stories, my stories. But as the ladies start to read, they're going to identify themselves in a bit of each chapter.
I am curious as to your perspective, your observations, and granted, and I take it you have lived in Barbados, down in the Caribbean, for quite some time, but your observation as to how, if it has changed, the traditional kinds of relationships, and especially here in America, you hear the phrase quite often of traditional family values, and those kinds of things. I'm wondering what your observations are in regards to that in light of your book, Good God.
That's a very good question. Actually, I've had the best of both worlds. I would have lived most of my life here, but I did go to college in Houston, Texas, Rice University. So a lot of my early single girl experience was in the college scene. Now, I would have been coming out of, as you rightfully said, traditional
Mhm.
Barbados, where it was expected that the intention, at least, was to get married somewhere in your 20s. You have 2 to 5.5 children, and you live happily ever after. So I grew up with that concept of marriage in my head, which people might now term as old fashioned, getting married before you have children. But that was the construct that I knew. So imagine leaving that construct of family, of marriage, and then going to college in the US and realizing that they were not interested in love.
Hmm.
Between 18 and 22, while I was hoping to find my knight in shining armor on the white horse, they were not interested in any long term anything. They were not interested in traditional marriage. They were not interested in traditional relationships. It was a very hookup oriented culture, as most colleges are now, unfortunately. And just entering that space was a very rude awakening for me.
I had a couple on several years ago. They had a ministry, and it had to do with marriage, had to do with that
Mhm,
relationship. And I said, okay, well, let's start from the beginning. Allegedly, the first married couple was Adam and Eve.
mhm,
Okay, well, based upon our modern day, what was the ceremony that was held? What sanctioned it? What was it just because they were both in the Garden of Eden and they were the first two, allegedly the first two to be created, that it was automatically a marriage? Because I'm sure you're familiar with some of the, I guess you might call them apocryphal stories, where Eve wasn't the first woman. Lilith
mhm.
was the first woman because Lilith was a little too independent for Adam. And so I don't know what happened to her because I haven't really researched that, but I have heard this story anyway. Uh, and so we got into this conversation about, what is a marriage? What constitutes that? Who sanctions it? Who says that the state license is paramount? In other words, if you have one, you're married, as opposed to my wife and I, who back in 2002, we had a ceremony. We did have a minister, but there was no license. It was just a ceremony that we had in our backyard. I considered it a spiritual, if you will, or religious kind of thing. And a lot of people have been going down that road, not specifically for legal reasons, but just like, well, why do I need to, go through the rigmarole of a huge church and, the reception dinner and all of those, everything that I went through with my first wife, getting married in the Catholic Church, and then the traditional relationship. Um, Maybe it's best epitomized, and I'm curious of your thoughts. I interviewed my parents on this program 11 years ago. And the one thing that epitomized their relationship was the fact that, as my mother put it, I have his back and he has mine. And I
Mhm,
support him in his dreams and aspirations, and he supports me in mine, which means that they don't have the same things going on. They don't have the same desires, the same interests, and so forth. They have some. And then, of course, the big one was, of course, they did have similar interest in having a big family. What about
mhm,
how things have changed over not just the years and or the decades, but even the centuries for that matter, when maybe 100 or 300 or 500 years ago, you were matched with someone to create offspring to run the farm kind of thing.
mhm.
And today in the United States, for example, the statistics are showing that women and couples, they're saying, we don't want to have kids right now. And our population in the United States is going down. So there's
Mhm.
another shift away from the traditional aspects, whereas the Catholic Church and so forth says, be fruitful and multiply. And they're saying, no, thank you. Don't want to do that right now.
Yes. Now, thank you for sharing that. Lots of great perspectives there. One of the things that I do believe is that your definition of marriage comes down to a couple of factors: your cultural norms
Hmm.
and also your spiritual operating system. Now, as we know worldwide, there are a variety of operating systems. Some people believe in Hinduism, Buddhism, there are different religions, there are different practices, and so forth. So, based on what you follow, would help to determine what marriage is to you. So, I can only talk about the perspective of what marriage is to me
Hmm.
and how I've grown up seeing it, and where I see the world at based on that um, perspective. So I've always felt that, having grown up in the Christian faith, I've always felt that marriage is a covenant. A covenant pretty much meaning um, a, a, a deep, I don't want to use commitment because commitment doesn't even describe the length and breadth of covenant, but imagine it suggests something deep, a committed relationship. And sometimes in some instances it may be bonded by or it might be ratified by blood or by different things. Sometimes help seal a covenant, showing you how revered it is. And coming out of the Christian faith, I do believe that God is part of that covenant between a man and a woman. It's kind of like this three string, this three strand cord, in which, in order for the man and woman to be married, God must be in there somewhere.
Hmm.
So, you may have your beliefs, I may have my beliefs or whatever, but it's God, the defining center, that is the glue that is tying us together. So having set the tone with my perspective of marriage, imagine now we are in a world where a lot of people may not have had a church upbringing, and they now have to create their narratives of what preferred unions are. And therefore, in the absence of God as something serious for them, as something paramount for their life, in the absence of God, they might see relationship and marriage as, does it make me happy?
Mm.
I'm a man, can it be with a man who makes me happy? I'm a woman, can it be with a woman who makes me happy? There's so many permutations and combinations of what people uh, qualify marriage as.
Yeah.
And I believe it all starts with your operating system. So the farther away we go from God being our source and our center, guess what? The higher the level of different narratives for what marriage is.
And it's interesting. I did a little observation over the last 200-300 years, maybe it goes back further than that, where we had the differentiation in our society between peoples. In other words, those things that quote unquote divide us. And of course, especially here in this country, in the United States, one of the early issues had to do with race. And then we passed an amendment, that certain groups of people, and of course we had the Civil War, but certain groups of people could finally vote. And it was based on skin color. Then we had this whole fight over women's rights, suffrage movement in the early 1900s. And then we moved into probably closer to the 50s or 60s, maybe going into the 70s, this whole fight over what you just referred to as, loving someone, whether it's of the same sex or opposite sex. Now here we are in the 21st century. The new fight that over a division is over this issue of trans. I don't feel comfortable in the body, the gender that I'm in, and I want to change that. All right. And so now we're going through that whole rigmarole. And there are reasons. Now, obviously, there's nothing one can do about the one's skin color. There's nothing that one can do about their gender. And I'm now bringing it forward through those phases. And it has been shown through history that there have been same-sex relationships, whether the powers that be have liked it or not. They have been there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why there are people coming into this world, being born, who don't feel comfortable. I don't know what those reasons are. All I know is that's the latest conflict, if you will. And it's like, I have no problem whatsoever. I don't want to know what your pronouns are. I want to know what your name is. Okay, let me refer to you by your name. All right. Your name, of course, is Cherita, and it's Cherita O'Dell, and we're talking about Good God. It is a single girl's rocky path to finding true love, and we're going to continue talking about this in many different contexts. But Cherita, I wanted to ask you in this regard to the latest grappling that we have in our society today, and it is global, not just in the United States, over this issue of people not feeling comfortable in their skin, in terms of, or I should rephrase that, they're not comfortable in their gender.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can understand the he and the she, but the they and the them, so forth. I was talking with someone who wanted to be referred to, if not by name, by the gender of they, them. And I said, I don't understand. Could you clarify? They said, yeah, it's because I feel part of the collective. In other words, we're all connected. There is no separation between us. We were all created by the same creator, right? So we all come from the same stuff, right? I guess you could go back to ashes and dust to dust. That's what we were created from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have that similarity, but we're the ones that make the differentiation in terms of the differences. Stepping out of relationships in particular, and I do want to get back into Good God, a single girl's rocky path to finding true love. In terms of just relating with one another, we found even more ways of dividing ourselves by what we believe, who we support politically and otherwise, what our economic status is, and the list goes on, and our education, and so forth. How have you, I guess I should ask, because I'm guessing that the majority of your experience is there in Barbados, right?
For a large part, yes. I'm very well traveled, and as I said, I would
Okay.
have spent about 6 years abroad in college, 4 years in undergrad in Houston, 2 years in Puerto Rico,
Okay.
graduate school.
Right. So share with us your perspective and observations, whether it be within your faith or even outside of it in that regard. Maybe it transcends your faith from your perspective. That yes, we're all the same at one level, and that we've lost that understanding over the centuries.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my opinion, it goes back to your standard operating procedures. Each person has a set of standard operating procedures, rules which govern how they live and how they see the world. Uh, Based on that, my standard operating procedures are based on the Bible. For other people, it might be the Quran. For somebody else, it might be something else. But for me, it's the Bible. So because I operate based on that set of procedures, I see God introducing me in Genesis to man and woman as who he created.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, I've always grown up knowing that there's a man and woman. Now, granted, I do believe that there are some persons who have had, because they do exist, biological challenges in which they might present as a female, but anatomically they might have male parts and vice versa. I do believe there have been persons born looking male, but inside totally feel what I as a female might feel. So I believe those things do exist in different forms and fashions, in some instances from birth. But I also believe that, and you keep hearing me say this repeatedly, that if you don't have a standard that you're anchored to, you can pick anything that makes you happy, in terms of lifestyle choices, sexual orientation, and so forth. You can decide, look, it's harder for me to fight this and do what the world wants me to do and stay firm and heterosexual. So you know what? I'm just going to follow my heart's desires. And those are choices that people make every day, right? Or believe that they're born into. However, I like to go back to the fact that I can't make determinations on any of that in terms of whether it is, everybody has their choice. What I would say is this, that God is love. And he always showed love in terms of, regardless of if you were the biggest sinner on the cross, about to be hanged, or sorry, about to die for, let's say hypothetically, murdering X amount of people, he still saw you as his child. So all these people who have gravitated to everything under the sun, whether male, female, LBGTQI plus, all these letters, etc., he still sees them as his child and wants them to come to him in love and follow what he said as his standard operating procedures. So even though there are lots of differences out there in terms of how people present themselves, how people see themselves, guess what? My job is to love on them, regardless of their belief system, their sexual orientation, their lifestyle choices. All my job is to do is to love on them and present myself in a way that my standard operating procedures teach me to.
We are talking again with Cherita O'dell, and again, the book is entitled Good God, A Single Girl's Rocky Path to Finding True Love, and it's here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan with Cherita, and Cherita O'dell is my guest, the author of Good God. Is the title, just the first two words there, Good God, is it a plea? Is it a statement? Is it a question? How is that presented to the reader?
It is all of the above. All of the above. Because when you are in crisis, sometimes the first thing you do is shout out, "Good God!" full of frustration and exasperation. When you have, experienced the satisfaction of your soul, you might put up your hands, rock back your head, and think, "Good God." So it is exactly what you need it to be for the space in which you are in at the moment.
Makes me think also of in Genesis, near the beginning of where the creation is going on. It's almost like you're making a statement saying, "That was good, God." And of course, as God creates on day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I believe he said, after creating man and woman, he said, along with everything else, "It is good." It is good.
There you go.
It seems to me that the whole aspect of relationships, plural, as well as obviously singular for individuals, is part of the reason why we even exist. Because if it weren't, I've used this analogy many times, Cherita, there are enough Class M planets in the universe that you and I could occupy our own. But the reality is we don't. All 8.5 billion people are here. Let's talk about that from obviously from your faith perspective, a spiritual perspective, in terms of understanding a better understanding from your perspective. What, again, acknowledging what you've already stated about a standard operating procedure, and in again, your case, your faith, it happens to be the Bible. But in terms of someone who maybe hasn't chosen a path such as that, but definitely, because I have interviewed atheists who come across as very spiritual people. And by the way, there is no book. Atheists don't have a book, as far as I know. There is no ancient wisdom teaching for atheists. But I do say, as a metaphysician, I am an agnostic metaphysician in that I can tell you what I believe, but I don't know. Like if someone asked me about if there's something after death, when we die. I've had a sister and a father who have passed on.
Sorry to hear.
I believe that they are on the other side waiting and so forth. I don't know that because it's not like I can peek through the veil and come back and say, oh, hey, Cherita, guess what? You know what's over there? There's Coke machines, vending machines and stuff. There's shuffleboard and, oh, man, we'll have a blast. I have no clue. But for those who are searching for a relationship, and there are so many different levels, help us to understand what a relationship means in terms of wanting to create one. I understand that obviously if you're looking for a mate, you're asking for a different kind of a relationship. And if you're just looking for a confidant, someone that you can talk to about stuff. My mother is one. I have a relationship there where I can call her, or my other elder sister. I can do the same with her. And sometimes she calls me on my stuff, which is a good thing. But can you help us to, and again, I know it's not a simple thing to do, but to better understand what we need to know in creating these different levels of relationships?
Yes. Well, firstly, let's acknowledge that there are different types of relationships, as you said, and based on different types of love, you have agape love, that brotherly love. I have a girlfriend who's been my best friend from college, 30 years. We don't have to see one another, but once every 2 years, and it's almost as if we press the play button and, our love keeps going for each other. Then you have, of course, that paternal type of love, where you can love your child, but you can happily discipline them as well to make sure they stay in line and grow up into the best person they can be. And there's also that eros type of love, a very romantic, deep connection. And all those different types of love, I do believe, were created for us to enjoy people at different levels. I don't think God wanted us to have eros for 8 billion people, right? Yeah. So some of those would operate, some of us would be our buddies, our best buds, our colleagues.
Yeah. We might end up with 16 billion if we're not careful.
I know. And then, some people talk about a soulmate, truly believing that there might be, one or a handful of people that they were really meant to connect with. But this is what I believe. I believe that eros type of relationship, that romantic type of love, is best found with someone that when you are united with them, you are literally helping to bring super value to the planet. I believe the highest form of union is not you just shacking up with, somebody else to feel good, and then keeping it on a superficial level. But I believe that the union of two individuals can really that are primed to literally complement one another does far greater for the progression of the world than we can do on our own. So yes, we can make a big difference on our own. And you'll find that what the book talks about too is more than anything else being whole. Because let's be honest, not everybody's going to be married. Not everybody wants to be married. And some people are just happy by themselves. And some people have desired being united with someone from birth. Okay, so there are lots of different desires in there. But the key first and foremost is to being whole as a person. How do we get you to be your best self, to bring out all those skills and talents in you to make an impact on the world? And then when you figure that out, imagine connecting with a spouse who has been so activated as well. that's a lot of power. You see, when you live life thinking above and beyond yourself and how you can make an impact on others and help people smile and help your children develop and help to program them into good human beings. When you think about that and you're united with somebody else with a common goal, that is tremendous power. And I think that's what you should be aspiring towards if you so desire it.
Yeah. I heard something some time ago in regards to there's a passage that says, "Wherever two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in
Yes.
the midst." Now,
Yes.
what I found interesting was this person did a deep, deep, deep dive into the phrase "in my name."
Hmm.
And what they found was that, first of all, there was no magic word like abracadabra. In other
Hmm.
words, if I was to utter the name of Yeshua, miracles will happen. No.
Hmm.
The deep dive went down to the point where what was being said there was, where two or more are gathered in the mindset of the Christ, in
Hmm.
the shall we say, the consciousness of the Christ. That is what is meant by "in my name"
Hmm.
in terms of praying.
Well,
And that was just one perspective.
uh-huh.
And I thought that was a rather interesting thing, because I often wonder sometimes. I know people pray and then they will say "in Yeshua's name," but what is it what are they thinking about when they say that last part? "In his
Okay.
name." Okay.
Oh,
And so in terms of, I mean, I know a lot of times we pray in desperation, as opposed to in gratitude, in thankfulness, in appreciation for maybe the life that I have, the relationship that I have, the place that I live, et cetera, et cetera. Talk to us a little bit about people joining together, because yes, you say, hey, one person can make a big difference, sure, on their own. But man, because my wife and I, a lot of people have met the two of us together, and we've even heard this phrase used. He says, "You are a power couple," and that's nice to hear. I have my own understanding of what that means, but
hmm.
but that is kind of where we're coming from when we are sort of establishing and creating these relationships. We each have, can I put it this way? We each have our own sort of vibe, okay?
Hmm.
Our frequency, our energy frequency. But man, when you hook up and match with somebody else and you combine those frequencies for certain maybe goals or desires and so forth, there's no stopping them. And then you add more people to that, depending upon the situation you're in. It just keeps going and going. Can you share with us a little bit your perspective?
Well, firstly, let me start on that phrase "in my name." And let's go all the way back to the days of yore, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And what is interesting is that when sometimes a messenger had to deliver a message or a general had to represent an army,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that they always mention at the end of delivering that message or whatever was in whose name they came,
Right.
right? So in my
Mm-hmm.
name might have been, I am here representing Caesar,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm here representing whoever.
Right.
So in my name carried that um, connotation of you were acting as an ambassador for someone higher than you.
Mm.
So, in my opinion, when you talk about "in my name," when two people come together in the name of Jesus, uh, it is different from when they're coming together in the name of, let's say, Muhammad, or in the name of Jah Rastafari, or in the name of, um, someone else.
Yeah.
That is literally letting you know which banner we are operating under, right? So even when we pray and we end by saying, in the name of Jesus, it lets you know that that was not necessarily a tribal prayer or a Hindu prayer. That was a Christian prayer.
Okay.
Yes. So in the name of, who are you representing? Who are you? So obviously, as I said, I have, been a Christian for a while. So that's the banner I operate in. So when I look at things like a union, I am hoping that when that person I get together, we operate in the name of Jesus, representing God and the principles of Jesus Christ. And therefore, it is hope that as we unite, that powerhouse aspect that you're talking about is my husband's gifts, talents, and spiritual attributes combining with mine and impacting the world in a massive way.
I found what I found interesting, especially when talking about prayer, is that once again, from the agnostic standpoint, I don't know whether it really did anything, but I do remember back in the I think it was the late '80s or early '90s, and Pat Robertson and his people were being threatened by a hurricane. And he encouraged his people on the television program to pray that God would move this hurricane away so it would not harm them. Well, again, I don't know that the prayer had any difference, and quite honestly, I don't think it really makes any difference. But the hurricane moved. The hurricane moved. So if we want to attribute it to the prayer, wonderful. But that is the kind of thing. I mean, now, if you think about it from the standpoint of if you have faith as much, the size of a grain of a mustard seed, you say to this mountain, move. Well, let me tell you something. A hurricane is a mighty mountain,
Yes.
and they got it to move. All right. I'll just go ahead and say that, okay, their prayers had an effect. And it's like when we do put that out there. So when I was talking with my mother the other day. Now, my mother will be 92 this year. Now, my father, of course, has passed on, and they were together for almost 62 years of marriage.
Wow.
And he passed at the age of 91, March 1st of 2024, I believe it was. And would have been 92 that August 13th. But I was curious as to whether or not, and I think this is an important thing to talk about too. I asked her, I says, I really wanted to ask this of both you and Dad before his passing, but I didn't get a chance to, or I didn't take the time. I says, was there ever a time before he passed where the two of you kind of sat down and you said, hey, I just want to say I forgive you for blah, 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 over the years, if that was the case. And then you would do reciprocate. And she says, well, we never had to do that. And she says, because it was, and she mentioned this to me, she says it was like only a few weeks into the marriage, they were having sort of a knockdown, drag out fight of sorts. She was the one yelling. She even told me this. She said, I was the one yelling, and your father wouldn't yell back. And it was like, she says, well, you're not playing the game right. Okay. So they finally came to an agreement that anytime there was an issue, they would stop, sit down, and they would talk about it. So that there wouldn't need to be forgiveness. I forgive you, you forgive me, that kind of thing. Now, I remember this in the 70s, they went through marriage encounter through the Catholic Church, right?
Yes.
And she says, well, we didn't really need it because we were really doing well, but we thought, what the heck, there's always room for improvement. Nothing wrong with that. And it's been interesting to talk with her about these kinds of things because I have found that in my life, forgiving myself is almost as important, if not more so, for going down that particular road where there was conflict. And I'm not a fan of drama, okay? I just am not. But that's something that I think that a lot of us have not done. And sometimes we go into relationships and we haven't done that kind of work. Do you talk about that kind of thing in your book or in some of the conversations that you have with people in this regard, that you got to let go of a lot of this stuff? I mean, I have a statement that says, "I forgive you, but more importantly, I forgive myself for allowing myself to be dragged into this quagmire." Can you
Mhm.
share with us your perspective on that?
Yes, indeed. Two things. One of the things I talk about a lot in the book is that having interacted with a lot of the frogs, so to speak, you kind of learn,
I
you
know
get to
what you mean.
learn, you get to learn what is acceptable to you. You
Hmm.
get to learn what is to be tolerated, but a lot of that is based on your worth. Yeah. And but in the process, you start creating a filter. Your filtration system gets better in terms of knowing who to let in and who to leave out. uh, Thanks to all, the people that I met that were not for me, guess what? When I met the person that is for me, I saw his worth very quickly.
Hmm.
It bubbled to the surface very quickly. And so, in being with him, you learn that something like, leaving out the ice tray once in a blue moon is not worthy of going to the divorce court.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of things in marriages and serious relationships that people are breaking up for turn out to be turn out to be roommate issues,
Oh,
not deep-seated marriage issues. And because we were not able to identify the valuable traits that we should be excited about and gravitating towards, we spent a lot of time becoming resentful and bitter at the small foxes. Here your socks are again at the door. But guess what? When you birth your children, he held them and helped feed them at night. How could you forget about that? So that's one aspect of forgiveness, in the sense of, from the root, learning to look past what are small roommate issues and looking at the core of the person that you're with and their value system and their worth.
yeah.
The second aspect of forgiveness is not only pertaining to your partner, but pertaining to you and people in general. Is when you realize that when you don't forgive someone, it is the equivalent of you drinking poison, expecting them to die.
Yeah. Very, very
Right?
good. I
What
love
people
that.
don't realize is that a lot of these debilitating chronic ailments that we see, what is the root cause? A lot of the root causes are your organs not having that pinky healthy look that they should, not vibrating in the rhythm that they should, not having the frequency that they should. Why? Because of your unforgiveness, unbeknownst to you, your organs are in there stiffening out. Your
Mm,
organs are tightly holding on to the stuff that you will not let go. It is
mm.
literally you drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So that's why forgiveness is so important. It is never about condoning the other person's nonsense
Yeah.
or saying that I agree with your foolish behavior. And that's where people make the mistake. That is not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is literally releasing that other person from having a hold on you, letting them go.
Yeah. I wrote in my book, Choices, a four-step element, a four-step thing that initially for me it was three, and then one of my guests threw in the fourth one, and I kept it.
Mm,
And the first one was, "Thank you, teacher, for teaching me how not to be." Now, that doesn't
mm,
necessarily have to be with a person that you're in relationship with. It could be anyone out there that maybe that
yes.
rubs you the wrong way in the news or that kind of thing. The second one was what I've already stated. I forgive you, but more importantly, I forgive myself. The
Mm.
third is a question. What is it that you are so afraid of that makes you be this way?
Ooh.
Now, I'm not asking you to change. No, far be it from me, kind of what you just said.
Hmm.
I want to understand so that I can let it go and I can move on with my life. And I may not like what you say or do, but I just want to understand. And then the last statement, the last number 4 that my guest gave me was, you say these words: I love you. You have every right to be here just like me. I don't have to like what you say or do, but I do have to give you the respect for being here. It's like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this person that I've got an issue with, they're just reading from their script, and I'm reading from mine.
Yes.
But here's the kicker. We don't have to keep reading from the same script. We can rewrite the script.
There you go.
And that's part of what you're talking about in your book, Good God. Again, it is available. Good God, a single girl's rocky path to finding true love is, I want to say, but I'm going to ask the question, who is that on the cover?
Not me.
It's not. Okay, it is not. I was going to say, is that you on the cover years ago?
No.
Okay.
And she is, when you see the cover, you would see that it's a juxtaposition of the same person in 2 emotional states.
Yeah.
Going back with how they pronounce good God. So you see one looking happy and euphoric, good God, yay! And you see one looking, good God.
Yeah. It's like, get me out of
And you
here.
can experience those at the same time.
Exactly. We're talking with Cherita O'Dell, and again, the book is called Good God, and this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D, along with Cherita, and this is interesting. I love this word in particular. One of the things that I have personally discovered, and this again is for me, I always sort of preface this by saying that it's like what you were saying earlier about where you are. This is my operating manual. You say, these are my beliefs. I'm not putting them on anybody. And I say the same thing. I'm not putting any of what I share on anybody else. You go your own direction, and God forbid you should follow my path, because it's mine. Stay off my path. The disciples, for example, were watching and observing the master doing all of these different miracles, whether it was raising the dead or turning water into wine or feeding with loaves and fishes or curing the leper or the deaf or the blind, etc., etc., etc. And they finally come to him, and I paraphrase here, and they say, hey, could you teach us how to do all that kind of magic stuff? That is really cool stuff. And he says, well, I could. Yeah, sure, I can teach you this. But let me tell you something. This is nothing. You are going to do greater works than this. This comes to the one word that is showing up here on my screen. I personally believe that the greater works is transforming one's life. And that's what you are here trying to help people to do, to transform their lives, right?
Yes, indeed. Having gone through a lot experientially, I would say that change only comes, first of all, it is like Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't go unless you are willing to acknowledge that you finally have a problem, or finally willing to acknowledge that you have a problem, right? So that is the beginning of transformation. Acknowledging that something you're doing is just not working out. And for example, in my dating life, I was always going in with my happy rose-colored glasses on and looking past 1,000 red flags, because I liked them and all I wanted them to do was like me back. And that's where I had to acknowledge that repeatedly making the same mistakes is not going to get me to my knight in shining armor, especially if that is a desire of my heart. Right. It was a burning desire of my heart. I always wanted a partner to share my life with. I didn't want to do life by myself. As good as it was, that was my desire. And because of that, I had to sit down and say, you know what? The common denominator of all these situationships going nowhere is me.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Right? That's the first point of recognition, acknowledging that I had something to do with these non-starter relationships that just wouldn't launch. And I remember I said, you know what? Let's work on me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I started reading more books about, just your worth, your value, elevating what I brought to the table. I even started going to different, faith conferences, flew to the US to go to different conventions and so forth, to take different little workshops and seminars that I thought could elevate what I was bringing to the table. So the first point was stop waiting on this person to show up and start working on what I was going to deliver them. I worked on me in expectation that partnership was going to happen for me. So I think that's the first step, acknowledging that you are the common denominator, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, the same way you might be hoping for somebody else is out there hoping for someone too. So what are you going to deliver to them if ever you shall meet? Yeah. Many times we put so much expectations. I want this person to be this. They have to know how to cook. They need to make $1 million a month. What are you bringing to the table?
Yeah. Yeah.
And thirdly, learning to look through a lens that is different from what you used before. A lens that helped to filter not necessarily what you like. That's the part that people are going to be confused at. Yeah, not necessarily what you like, but a combination of what you like and what you need. Because, if your love language, if the thing that titillates your soul is words of affirmation, and you butt upon someone who is belittling you, who is insulting you, who's saying, man, those eggs did not taste as good as I expected. My mother does better. Warning sign, warning sign, warning sign. That person will not be able to meet your felt needs if words of affirmation are at the top of your list. So you start looking through a different lens of what do I need to fulfill me? It helps you then strain out those persons who present themselves that will just cause you harm and destruction.
Yeah, and I would not actually add this one to your list because it probably falls into one of those categories. The aspect, because I learned this when I was a young man, desperation ain't going to get it because they will smell it a mile away.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And one of the things that both my wife and I did before we met each other, and we didn't know that the other was doing this, and we didn't know until after we were together that we shared this. I was instructed by some good friends to write a list of the things that I want in the other person. Now,
I'm going to tell you about that in a minute.
Yeah, not discounting what am I bringing to the table, but what is it that I want out of this relationship with this other person that I haven't even met yet, that I don't know? And sort of, as I say it, put it up to the universe, put it up to God, saying, hey, okay. It's almost along the lines of when my wife and I had to move last summer, and we found a place here in Twin Peaks back in October. We didn't ask or put out there, we need a place to rent or we need a home to buy. No, we said very generically, we need a place to live. And we let the universe guide.
Mm-hmm.
And it shocked the heck out of me that, number one, we would even qualify, let alone be going through the process, completing the process, and then the next thing you know, we're dragging all our stuff 200 miles and so forth. And it's been great. But I have this one thought. I love your observation. Don't have any expectations. Granted, the list, once you write it down, you don't have them anymore. Now they're on the paper. You've let them
Mhm.
go. Have anticipation, not expectation. And there is a difference. Talk to us about that.
Yes, let me jump in there. First of all, my standard operating procedures, the Bible says in Habakkuk 2, verse 2, it literally says, write the vision down and make it plain. Now, people often leave out the additional part so that the heralds can run with it, right? So it's
Ah,
almost literally that when you write it down, you're almost given kind of like that heavenly permission. God, if this is your will, do what you do best. Number one. So
hmm.
write the vision down. Number two, one of the things that I learned to do, which I would say transformed my outlook, came when I went to one of the conventions. It was a seminar that was so interesting to me. And he took the list, he took the concept of the list, because for a long time people have been ditching this list thing to the curb. Nonsense, foolishness, doesn't work, waste of time. However, he took the list and he said, start by writing 100 things down about the opposite sex that you like. And
Hmm.
guess what? The fact that Sally has blonde hair might get in there. The fact that John has is over 6'4" might get in there, right? So a lot of superficial things get on the list when you have to put down 100 things,
Hmm.
okay? But you might also put spontaneous, intelligent, um, loves adventure, whatever.
Hmm.
That might get on the list too. Here's the deal. This is what I found interesting. So you're happily writing your 100, and you'll find that a lot of traits, a lot of physical traits get into the 100, but then take your marker and highlight the top 25.
Ah.
Now, here's what's interesting. A lot of us would have been dating with a lot of things in those 100, which would never make our top 25. Then we go a step further. You ready for it?
Hmm.
Then circle your top 10 non negotiable list. All right. So
Hmm.
remember, you're walking in expectation. The same way you wrote your list about, or you wrote down, I want some place to live. You have put your expectation out there. The
Hmm.
heralds ran with it. So
Hmm.
when you now circle your top 10 non-negotiables, and you have to be realistic. They might not be etched in stone forever, but they serve as a good guideline for right now. And to give
Hmm.
you an idea of my top 10 non-negotiables, the first one, put what is absolute top tier for you. So my first one was Christian, right? So it
Hmm.
means that I can't be going out there butting into somebody who doesn't know God or care about God and talk about he's the one.
Hmm.
Is not going to work for me.
Hmm.
But also making that list, I had things like sense of adventure, romantic, intelligent, honest, sense of humor. And here's the joke. And I kept my list for a long time, and that list served as my filter. Um, it was helpful to me because what happened, because I had it in my head, when I butt up on someone who was a nice Christian boy, but he doesn't laugh. Like I need somebody to laugh and cackle with. How is this going to work out?
Yeah.
I knew immediately he was not it. So
Hmm.
imagine if I just went all excitedly, oh, he's a Christian, he's like me, yeah, we share the same beliefs. And then I'm wondering, why am I the Christian that's going into divorce court? Is because he didn't meet me on other levels.
Hmm.
So I found that top 10 non-negotiable list very practical. It was fun to do. I did it with some girlfriends. And here's the scary part. Listen to this.
The
I
scary
did it
part.
with I did it with two other girlfriends. And listen to me. We all got what we wanted. But here's the thing. You have to still make sure what you want adds value to you.
Hmm.
Because one of my girlfriends, she wanted a man who was that kind of father figure, who already had, I think, a house or house plans. And I remember we dogged her out because her list was so matter of fact and practical. There was no love in there. There was no romance.
Mm.
There was no, it was literally a provider. She only the provider aspect of a man was in her top 10. And guess what? She got and married exactly what was on that list. 3 years later, they were separated and divorced because, and she was younger than us. And no matter how we shouted at her in our little get together, come on, you got to you have to want a man to kiss you. You have to, come on, you want him to go out and take you something else. No, all provider related stuff. And that was exactly what she got and nothing else.
Yeah.
Right? So write the vision down and make it plain and see what the heralds bring to you.
And I'll add one other thing, patience.
Ooh.
Patience. I mean, now, my wife and I moved from Phoenix to Santa Barbara, and we were there for, I would say, 19 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
And during the last 10, 12 years, which is a long stretch, my wife wanted to move. I said, well, here's the thing. In order for us to have moved to Santa Barbara, the universe had to make a way. And it did. We had plenty of equity in the house we were living in Phoenix. We both had just lost our jobs. So now there was the decision. Do we take that little nest egg that we've got, fly to Ireland to try to find a place to live, which there are going to be other huge hurdles to get through.
Yes.
Or do we find a place here? And of course, she was born and raised in Santa Barbara. So we took a week off. We went to Santa Barbara, went and did all the stuff. And eventually, in 2 months, we moved there. So in the last 10 to 12 years, I said the same thing. I said, well, look, the universe has to make a way. We've put it out there. We've told the universe what it is that we want. I mean, ideally, we want to move to Ireland. But there may be steps that we have to go through in order to make that happen.
Yes.
So we put it out there. We need a place to live. We need a place to live. And the universe actually did provide. Could we have done it sooner? I don't know. And quite honestly, I've gotten to the point now where it doesn't really matter. It happened when it happened.
There you go. Yes.
And now we're in this beautiful house and living the life and doing the DIY stuff, which is a lot of fun for me, and just enjoying what we have now. And again, we're still putting it out there that we really do want to move to Ireland. And the way things are going right now on a global level, who knows? The doors may open up even further. We'll see.
The key is to walk in expectation. That's
Thank you.
That's your only key.
Anticipation. Yeah.
Yes.
Anticipation. I don't know what it's going to look like. And someone even asked me, says, well, where do you want to live in Ireland? I said, look, and then this may not make the most sense, but I said, it doesn't matter. If we're on the island, we're good. We're good. And we will be provided for. And that kind of goes back to that passage in the Bible I actually quoted in my book, having to do with, and again, I'm not sure, maybe it is the Sermon on the Mount, maybe it isn't, but where the disciples, the followers, they are starting to grumble over the fact that they don't know what they're going to eat that evening, or what are they going to wear tomorrow? Where are they going to lay their heads tonight? Where are they going to sleep? And on and on and on and on. He says, whoa, 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 whoa. You see the bird up there? It doesn't toil. It doesn't work. It doesn't spin. It doesn't do anything other than live its life. And yet, it's taken care of. Then he talks about the lilies of the field and goes down that long list. He says, let tomorrow worry about itself.
There you go.
And I know that a lot of us, especially when we get our mindsets locked into social media, the news, and what have you, we get really distracted. It's why I try to stay away from it. The real irony is that for some 30 or 40 years, I've worked for news, talk, and information stations on both sides of the aisle, so to speak. So it's like, okay, how do I stay away from this stuff? And yet, you take care of it. And I've done a pretty good, but now I work from home and I'm able to run the radio station remotely. So I don't get inundated in that fashion. But it is incredible the way things unfold. I do not believe in coincidence.
Nothing just happens. Nothing just happens.
I do believe in coincidences. things that coincide. So it's just a repronunciation of the same word.
Yeah.
It gives it a different perspective. And I
Yeah.
try to encourage people to that. Good God, A Single Girl's Rocky Path to Finding True Love is the title of the book by Cherita O'dell. And this is Tell Me Your Story. Cherita, this has been fascinating. I first of all, I always get excited when I'm talking with someone who is coming to us from outside the United States and even across the water. And of course, for you, going to that school in Texas, it was just a short little swim away, wasn't it? But it's been a pleasure to have you on the program to share your book and your perspectives on relationships. And I want to encourage people to go to the website that will give you more information. And it is basically goodgodhelpme.com will be linked to that. Goodgodhelpme.
Help me out.
Help me
Good
out.
God. Yes.
Help me
yes.
out. Got it? Okay, I see it here. Goodgodhelpmeout.com. Please, we'll be linked to that website so that folks can get more information. And do you work with people one-on-one, like through Zoom and that kind of thing, in terms of maybe some one-on-one counseling or support or mentoring, that kind of thing?
Well, I am primarily a transformational speaker. So persons will bring me into their organization or bring me to specific events and conferences when they really want to transform people's ways of thinking. And I guess that strength that I have is what really enabled me to write the book from the perspective of this is real life and this is how we can make it even better. So yeah, that's my passion. Just showing people, and sometimes it's simple shifts that can elevate your quality of life. And, you don't have to feel as if you have to stay at one level, if it's quicksand or the lower level of a 40th floor building, you don't have to stay there forever.
Well, again, I thank you so much for being a part of the work that we're doing here to try to help people and to help them to transform their lives in or out of relationship. It starts with me, and then I get to branch out and
That's it.
with my wife. So we encourage folks to get a copy of your book. Once again, Good God and goodgodhelpmeout.com is the website. And I have 3 final questions that I want to ask you. I ask all of my guests, but first I want to thank you for listening to and watching. Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and we're on YouTube and Rumble. So hope you'll subscribe as well as click notification. We hope you'll get a copy of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. It's available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And we also hope that maybe you can help us out financially. We have a tip jar, as we like to call it. It's called PayPal. Just put in the email address. It's a very easy one. It's richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com. We'll take any amount, and we'll even take energetic support as well. And finally, this is something we should have talked about in the context of our conversation. Maybe we'll get you back here to talk about this. We encourage people to spend some time during this, the decade of perfect vision, to spend some time in that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place that no one else can get to, listening to and following the promptings of that still, small voice. With all that being said, we go to our final 3 questions for a very special guest. And the first of those 3 questions is, who is Cherita O'dell?
Cherita O'dell. Wow. She's a fun lover. She's a former track athlete who went to the highest level of sport, the Olympic Games, back in 1996, and discovered herself at the highest and lowest point of her life at the very same time when I got injured just before my event at those said same Olympics. Coming out of that, a resilient spirit that is very hard for anyone to break, always trying to elevate herself. She knows her worth, and always trying to bring light and love and joy to other people as well. Walking with purpose and laughter.
What gets you up in the morning?
Ooh, I like that question. Um, those self-actualization goals that you have in you, which is just to, I want that everything in me comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if I die tomorrow, yeah, people might be shedding a little tear and stuff, but they're like, she lived to the full. I want to live to the full. I don't want that any gift that's in me is not unopened. I don't want that any strength that I was given isn't maximized or given 100% output. What makes me up in the morning is knowing that somebody else might feel that life is worthwhile because I spoke it into them.
And finally, what was your best day?
Ooh, there's so many best days. My best day. That's a hard one because they're multiple. Um, I would say, and I don't want to offend a day by leaving it out. My best day, I think my best day was when I realized that God was real to me. When I sat down and realized a lot of the experiences that happened to me were not by chance. There were too many of them. That day, when I made a decision to commit my life to Him, I would say that was the best day because everything else since then has felt meaningful, purposeful, and if it doesn't work out, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Because eventually it does work out. It really does. And
However it's supposed to.
Exactly. I thank you again for joining us here on the program, and I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. To my brother, Mike, congratulations, Dad. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.